welcome back. Fred in the Shed 2, and just another chatty sort of CB video. Whilst I'm just sitting up in the shack, I thought I'd start the camera, so you're going to get all the hands again, as usual. I'm sorry about that. I don't know if you don't like the hands, but I kind of have to sort of talk with my hands. Something I want to chat about this time is CB radio, and I suppose you could include ham radio in this as well, but how CB radio becomes relevant in times of a disaster. Now, the reason I say this is because, it was, a few weeks, I think, before Christmas, there was some problem with the mobile phone network on EE, where we are. Obviously, a few transmitter towers went down, and suddenly you were getting no signal on your mobile phone. And it was sort of quite worrying. I mean, myself, a few of my text messages just to the missus kind of bounced back. But some of the younger people, they got quite upset about it. They were really, really sort of anxious and sort of frustrated. A bit panicky, really, just because suddenly their mobile phones didn't work and they weren't able to get onto social media and sort of communicate and things like that. And it did sort of start me thinking that what would happen in a modern kind of suburban city, if you like, if suddenly all communication stopped. Now, I suppose thinking about this, other than a city, this probably does happen from time to time. If you think of natural disasters, flooding, for example, it doesn't take much. If you live out in the sticks somewhere, UK, America, or whatever, Canada, and you get some flooding, and if that's sort of bad enough that kind of swamps, will say, a power station, or even just a sort of a local transforming station, it can wipe out your power, can't it? So I'm thinking that's going to wipe out the transmission towers and the relay sort of towers for mobile cellular activity. So that's going to wipe out all of your mobile phones. But what if it takes out your ordinary power as well? So what if you're stuck at home? And I suppose people that live out in the sticks, you've probably got generators, haven't you? So you might be used to this. But in the city, or in the outer suburbs where I live, I mean, say there was a natural disaster, say there was flooding, and it just took out all of the power, and you wouldn't be able to communicate. Your normal landline phones would go down, your cellular phones would go down, and I can see it getting quite panicky. I really can see people sort of start panicking if they can't communicate with their cell phones and they can't communicate with ordinary phones. And that's before we sort of think about terrorist activity, because obviously nowadays you've got to think of terrorist attacks. Now, I mean, there's obviously back in the day, it was things like nuclear attack. We all feared in the 80s that we were going to, the apocalypse now, and we were going to be hit by a nuclear weapon. It's most likely, it's not unlikely, is it? That's gonna, it's unlikely. That's not really going to happen. But it's more going to be a cyber attack. So you're going to have something like a smart bomb or a chemical warfare attack. Or more likely, it's going to be something like a cyber attack. They're going to attack our infrastructure for communication, and I'm not quite sure how they'll do it, but it could take out the whole network of communications. So once again, your mobile phones won't work, your internet won't work because your landlines will go down. And I mean, if it's bad enough when that went down just for a few hours before Christmas, I say people were getting quite tetchy, but imagine that going down for a few days. And once that's sort of gone, well, you're back to basics. What communications have you got? You're going to want to know what's going on around the area. You're not going to, and because the government's going to lock you down. This is another thing. If you imagine, let's say there was a cyber attack, and then there was we'll say a chemical. The terrorists released a chemical attack. The government are going to want to. They're not going to want panic. They're not going to want mass panic. So, are they going to sort of? they're not going to let that out on media, are they? So are they going to suppress the media and sort of play it down and only let out a certain amount of information? Basically, are you going to be kept in the dark? I think you will. I think the government will just keep you in the dark, and certainly for a few days before you're not really know what's going to happen. And this is where our radios come into play. Now think about it, right? You think of your neighbours that live around you. They must have looked up at my CB antenna, and it'd be worse if you're a ham operator and you've got a beam like a Yagi or something. You know, they must look at it. And I know there's been problems in the past. I've been really lucky, but people have been asked to take their beams down. The slightest bit of interference on televisions and radios, and straight away, it's that bloody bloke with that bloody antenna up there. It's him again. I've got one to go round there. Give a piece of my mind, bloody CB. You know what it's like. People are very, very quick to blame radio operators and CB operators for all of the problems. But you imagine if your communications went down for a couple of days, 2 or 3 days, and you weren't getting, say all the newspapers stopped and you weren't getting information. You imagine how panicky and edgy people will be. And suddenly, there's the guy down the end of the road. Well, he's got an antenna. And what if your power went down as well? Just imagine this is a really, really bad sort of cyber attack. What if they took out power stations? Maybe they, I don't know, maybe they was able to plant bombs or sort of some explosive devices. What if they took out power stations? You may imagine the panic then if people haven't got power and they haven't got communications. Well, with our CB radios, we have got communications, because it isn't going to take much, is it? Most of us have got cars, so we could just whip the battery out of a car, bring it up into the shack, fire up the CB. We'd be able to talk. Well, we'd actually be able to talk, I was going to say 15 or 20 miles, but if you think about it, if all the electricity went out, all the QRM would go. All those cheap, dodgy Chinese power supplies, all of the internet, all of the blooming routers and the Wi-Fi, if that's all out of the way, it would be heaven for us, wouldn't it? Because suddenly all our noise level drops. So yeah, we can probably communicate a lot further. We could probably go 30, 35 miles. Well, straight away, I'd be on the radio, finding out, chatting to just people on our local net. We'd all be on there, trying to find out what's going on in different areas. And of course, that, like with nets, stations could relay information along the line. So we wouldn't be starved of information. We would at least get some local information. So I think we'd be in demand when you think about it. Imagine 2 or 3 days with no communication and maybe intermittent power, or maybe if the power went off, other than people driving around physically in their cars trying to go to relatives to find, but it'd be chaos, wouldn't it? The motorways could become blocked if people suddenly panic and want to start driving all over the place. But there's the bloke down there. Let's go and knock on his door, find out if he knows anything. And if someone said to you, do you know any? Oh yeah, well, I've chatted to so and so. 30 miles away. Yeah, it's the same situation in Cambridge. Oh yeah, it's the same. Once word got out that you know something, that you have got a form of communication, you can imagine it. It's going to be like a queue of people coming up to your door. Suddenly, you're going to be Mr. Popular, which is a bit worrying, because you know what it's like when people panic and they sort of then focus their attention on one person. It could, it could turn quite nasty. And I suppose that's why you've got in America, and I suppose you've got in the UK, you've got survivalists, haven't you, that have got their little kind of shelters. I mean, originally I think that was built for nuclear attack, but you can sort of see the point, can't you, if you think about it? You imagine 2 or 3 days without power, no information, and you've got the means of collecting information. People are going to be quite agitated. I don't know. What do you think? Is it me? I just thought about it. I just thought about it before Christmas. I thought about what would happen, and I'd be up here. At least I would be able to communicate. I've got a radio scanner, which could pick up sort of FM and UHF. I've got obviously sideband CB communication, and I've got car battery. That's all I need. And Yeah, also got a shortwave. Can you see that? Yeah, we've also got the shortwave receiver. Again, you know, suddenly shortwave, travelling distances, you could then be, I mean, a lot of it's foreign language, of course, but then, of course, you could pick up signals from all around the world on shortwave, Radio China, for example. How many people now, right, how many households have a shortwave radio? Not many. How many people have got really a medium wave radio? Again, not many. But of course, a lot of that, you know, a lot of medium wave communication, even shortwave, is going to be controlled in a national crisis. That's going to be controlled by the government. That's going to be very censored and very restricted in the information that they're going to put out. CB, it's not controlled at all, is it? As we know. So. Yeah, CB radio in a crisis. Yeah, it could be. I hope I never find out. I really don't want to go through a national crisis, of course. But at least we're a little bit more, even if you just got a CB radio in your car, at least you're that little bit more prepared. At least you'd get some kind of local information, which might hopefully sort of, you know, reduce your sort of stress levels a little bit, perhaps not make you so anxious, but on the other hand, you don't know what you're going to find out. But there you go. So just a little Fred in the Shed 2 chat while I'm up in the shack and there's no one on the radio at the moment. I hope everyone's well. Thanks for watching this and, you know, listening to me waffling, and thanks for the comments. And yeah, put some stuff in the comments. What do you think? Do you think I'm paranoid, or do you think I'm spot on about having a CB radio in a crisis? Anyway, I'm waffling on, don't want to do that. So big thumbs up, cheers, thanks for watching, subscribe, Fred in the Shed 2. Lots of different stuff going to be coming on this channel over 2020. Got quite a few ideas for Fred in the Shed 2. But as for now, as always, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and of course, I'll catch you all on the next one.